Hello everybody. So, firstly, welcome back to this online catalog of the most compelling pieces that I find, usually pre-industrial, always, I hope, art quality antiques, sometimes referred to as period furniture, underwhelmingly. But I hope that taking a closer look at them will interest seasoned collectors just as much as it might help some new to the subject better understand what types of furniture from the past are most valuable and why. So anyway, today we have a 200-year-old publication or museum quality toilet table, as this is called in French. And this name, Toilette, simply comes from the word toile, meaning cloth, for the type of sheet back in the 15th and the 16th centuries, which would have covered the table onto which you would arrange your paraphernalia, your utensils for facial and hair care. Now anyway, in the Paris Museum of Decorative Arts, we're going to see some of this Charles X furniture, much of which belonged to the Duchesse de Berry, who is one of the personalities we credit with having championed this very refined post-Napoleonic style that we associate with the 1820s. Now she tried to come to power and she sparked a small revolt before having to hide behind a fireplace from the authorities and then being smoked out and arrested. But anyway, as we call the style Charles X after the king who was in power during the time that vaguely corresponds to when this style was in vogue, sometimes we call it also pieces from the time of the Duchesse de Berry, as she made important commissions favoring this turn of the page away from the dark mahogany of the Napoleonic Empire to these more blonde indigenous French woods, bird's eye maple in this case. This type of piece is also called a coiffeuse in French, which means hairdresser. Perhaps that's a better name than toilette, but the two are used interchangeably. And it's a type of piece which doesn't seem to arrive until about the year 1735, and it really comes into vogue throughout the 18th century, although the earlier models didn't have a fixed large mirror like this, but rather a small one which would flip up from sort of a center console, each side of which would be flanked by these deeper compartments and drawers, which would open at the front of the piece. Anyway, if you'd like a more in-depth look at this really remarkable style in furniture history, I'll invite you to consult some of my other videos on the style, during which I ramble on endlessly about Charles X work and why it's so refined, namely because it's situated at the top of a long timeline, the end of our traditional timeline of the decorative arts, from the end of the Gothic period to the onset of industrialization. Well, here we are right before industrialization, and so the traditions and techniques have culminated here to where we see a skillful production, a precision in the quality of execution that is really unparalleled at any other previous point along that timeline. And so, even though this is early 19th century, dating to the 1820s, 1825, we might say, it is in a lot of ways more tethered to the artistic paradigm of furniture production that we would call the 18th century. British historians coined the term the long 18th century, which is a better way for us to look at 18th century furniture rather than pieces that were literally made between 1700 and 1800. We can stretch that timeline out to cover semantically this sort of ultra-artistic, artisanal production that took place between, let's say, the onset of the Palace of Versailles, 1660, and then the onset of industrialization, 1840. But anyway, I really wanted to share this specific piece with you because it's the first dressing table that I've had in my possession with my wits about me, that is to say, enough to video. There was another one that was very much worth making a video on, but I hadn't quite figured out how to use a camera yet. And it was sold to someone who gave it to his wife on Valentine's Day, and we snuck it into their house, and it was a big surprise. And anyway, that was several years ago, and it's taken me that much time to find another. So, because I doubt that we will find another more harmonious example, I really wanted you all to be able to see it, as it is really a benchmark example, not only of Charles X work, but of a coiffeuse in general. The ram's heads that terminate the arms that support the mirror are truly exceptional, as is the general design of these inlaid motifs here. These beautiful neoclassical palmettes are particularly successful. The beautiful contrast of the wood here. And then something that's a little rare for Charles X, fine domestic work, is the presence of gilded bronze. In fact, this style is sort of known for its reactionary nature to the excessive use of gilded bronze during the Napoleonic Empire. And so it's kind of a fine and rare touch for us to see a little subtle use, nevertheless, of gilded bronze on this piece. And of course, we would see gilded bronze on royal Charles X furniture, but this is maybe more interesting, more relatable, because it's actually right at the upper tier, the highest point in domestic furniture, which are the types of pieces that speak to me the most anyway, because they are the most relatable. Anything higher in quality than this, and in fact you would be lapsing over into a palatial or an official type of government piece, which in a way loses that perfect balance between furniture and art that makes this art form so interesting. I do hope that you've enjoyed taking a closer look at this exceptional trace of the Charles X period, and if you'd like to support the endeavor of creating this online furniture library, please subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.